Do you all remember the joy, the high that many of us felt after last Tuesday's crushing blue wave elections in which Democrats overperformed by extraordinary margins pretty much everywhere? Do you all remember the fear and anxiety publicly expressed by Donald Trump himself and other elected Republicans as they began to dread even more the upcoming 2026 midterms? Do you remember how it felt to have a ray of sunshine in an otherwise very long, cloudy day of American politics? Well, I do. And that memory is fading because of what happened last night. 8 Senate Democrats voted with Republicans to end the government shutdown in exchange for effectively nothing. And we have to talk about it because, folks, we can't keep doing this shit. We can't do this shit anymore. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, folks. Let's just jump right in, just in case you haven't heard. 8 Senate Democrats voted with Republicans to end the shutdown effectively on Trump's terms. Mediaite reports, here are the 8 senators who broke ranks to join GOP on shutdown-ending deal. You have Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania. You have Senator Angus King, an independent of Maine who caucuses with the Democrats. You have Senator Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada. You have Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada. You have Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois. You have Senator Jean Shaheen of New Hampshire. You have Senator Maggie Hassan, Democrat of New Hampshire. And you have Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia. Okay, they voted to end the government shutdown. If you want to see faces, there they are. Tim Kaine, Jackie Rosen, John Fetterman, Shaheen, Hassan, Hassan, Angus King, Dick Durbin, Catherine Cortez Masto. Okay? They broke ranks. All the other Democrats voted against this, but these 8 were sufficient to tip the balance and allow the Republicans the filibuster-proof majority they needed to reopen the government. This is not good. It's just not good as far as I'm concerned. Now, they have their rationale. I will try to steelman the case for them. We'll get to that. I know many of you are thinking they need to be primaried, and I agree they need to be primaried. But just to provide some context here, Shaheen in New Hampshire is retiring, and so is Dick Durbin of Illinois. They are no longer seeking re-election, okay? I will also point out real quick, as far as their primaries, as Jake Sherman of Punchbowl News notes, Catherine Cortez Masto, she's not eligible until 2028. Hassan, not up till 2028. Shaheen is not running again. Kaine, not up until 2030. King, not up for 2030. So we will all need very long memories. Okay, it's not like they're up for re-election in 2026, the upcoming midterms. Okay, so if you're pissed off and you want them to be primaried, you have to keep a little bit of anger in your heart to sustain you for the next 2 to 4 years. Okay, keep that in mind. Now, again, we will give the justification, the rationale for what they did, but I just want to give you a sense of the backlash here. As Mediaite reports, oh, fuck off. Democrats rage a pathetic shutdown betrayal in mass backlash. 8 members of the Democratic caucus who backed a late-night deal aimed at reopening the government and ending the 40-day shutdown have ignited backlash from inside their own coalition, with critics slamming the move as a pathetic surrender. The shutdown, the longest in U.S. history, had been framed by Democrats as a last stand over health care. Okay, the reaction from top Democrats across the country was fury. AOC says the average monthly SNAP benefits is $177 per person. The average ACA benefit is up to $550 a person per month. People want us to hold the line for a reason. This is not a matter of appealing to a base. It's about people's lives. Working people want leaders whose words mean something. Chris Murphy, Democratic senator, says, I got back to my office after the vote tonight and recorded this. There's no way to sugarcoat what happened, and my fear is that Trump gets stronger, not weaker, because of this acquiescence. I'm angry, like you, but I choose to keep fighting. So let's hear what he has to say.
The vote hasn't closed, but it looks like 8 Democrats have joined Republicans to vote for a temporary reopening of the government for about 2 months, but a bill with no protections to stop the coming healthcare disaster in this country caused by Donald Trump's premium increases, nor any provisions to meaningfully stop Trump's corruption and his illegality. You can see how tired I am. I've been here all weekend. I've been working throughout the past few weeks to try to prevent this moment. After the elections on Tuesday, it just became absolutely clear that the American people do not want Democrats to be bullied into submission. They want Democrats to fight for their health care. They want Democrats to fight Trump's illegality. Bullies gain power when righteous people yield in the face of their wrongdoing. I didn't want this shutdown. I want it to end, but not at any cost. And of course, I wish that there was a path to saving this democracy and saving people's health care that didn't involve pain. This shutdown hurt. It did. But unfortunately, I don't think there is a way to save this country, to save our democracy, without there being some difficult, hard moments along the way.
And he goes on like this, but we have more to talk about, but he's obviously extremely upset. James Tallarico, who is a Texas Democratic legislator now running he's running for the Democratic nomination in 2026. John Cornyn is the Republican incumbent senator, so if he wins the primary, he'll be going up against Cornyn, or whoever wins the Republican primary, I suppose. But he says the moment demands fighters, not folders. Official statement from James Tallarico. Any deal that kicks 1.7 million Texans off their health insurance isn't a compromise. It's surrender. Governor Gavin Newsom said, pathetic. Governor J.B. Pritzker said, this is not a deal, it's an empty promise. Trump and his Republican Congress are making health care more expensive for the middle class and ending it for working families. Time for Democrats to stand tall for affordable health care. Ro Khanna, a progressive Democratic congressman, says Senator Schumer is no longer effective and should be replaced. If you can't lead the fight to stop health care premiums from skyrocketing for Americans, what will you fight for? Christy Jackson, who is a Biden loyalist, says it's time to pass the torch. Others got a little spicier. Adam Parkmenko says, oh, fuck off, Shaheen, in response to Senator Shaheen, who voted to reopen the government. Ron Filipkowski, who's the editor-in-chief of Midas Touch, says the only political accomplishment out of all of this for Democrats is that when health insurance skyrockets for 22 million Americans in 42 days, it will be clear to even low-information voters that Republicans are the ones responsible. Whether that makes this all worth it remains to be seen. Brett Meiselas, one of the founders of Midas Touch, says this is an all-time fumble by Democrats. After finally starting to rebuild trust with voters following the election, Democrats had momentum on their side. During the shutdown fight, Americans were beginning to believe they could actually hold firm. Republicans were the ones sinking fast, their approval rating plummeting, Trump hitting his lowest numbers ever. But instead of finishing the job and standing strong for the people, too many Democrats chose to dive right into the GOP's hole in a way that feels orchestrated. People like to say that Democratic messaging is bad, but it's really not about that. People won't support people they don't think are fighting for them. I will never blindly support and cheerlead a party. My allegiance is with the people, and the people are pissed. Harry Sisson, friend of the show, says, absolutely pathetic. I cannot believe we caved to this wannabe dictator and his goons. Thanks to the Democrats who voted no. We'll remember who bent the knee. Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, he voted for this. One of the other senator for Virginia, Mark Warren, voted against it. And again, we'll get to this in just a second. Keith Olbermann demanded Tim Kaine to resign. Harry Sisson again goes to Tim Kaine, says this is some weak shit senator. So I've got more to say. I just want to, here's their position. The position of the defector said, listen, Trump wasn't caving in the shutdown. The Obamacare subsidies are expiring. Health insurance premiums are going to skyrocket. By reopening the government, in exchange, we got a promise, a commitment from Republican leaders in the Senate that there will be a vote in December to reestablish the subsidies for Obamacare. In other words, as best I can tell, this is nowhere written in the legislation. The Republican leader says, hey, if you vote to reopen the government, I promise you, pinky promise you, that in a couple of weeks, I will let you vote. I will let you bring this issue to the floor for a vote on extending the ACA subsidies. I'm not guaranteeing you any support. And I'm not saying that this vote will pass the Senate, let alone the House. We'll get to that in a second. But I promise you will at least get to vote on it. And so that's the primary concession that these Democratic defectors are saying. Like, hey, listen, they at least promise that we can bring it to the floor. And then we can get these Republicans on the record when they vote against the ACA subsidies. Now that, of course, assumes that they follow through on their promise. No guarantee. But even if they follow through on the promise, it will still likely fail because you would need 60 senators to vote for extending the ACA subsidies. Very unlikely that happens. If you get that, it would then need to go to the House of Representatives because it doesn't matter if it passes the Senate. You also need the House. It's got to pass both the Senate, right? Or excuse me, the Senate and the House. Mike Johnson doesn't seem interested in this. So it's possible that even if all of the other things that I mentioned happens, that Mike Johnson says, no, I'm not bringing that to the House, and it dies in the Senate. If it makes it to the House, it has to pass with a simple majority, which, again, unlikely. And then if it passes the Senate and the House, it's got to go to Donald Trump's desk, and Trump can veto. And if he vetoes, well, then you have to have a 2/3 supermajority in both chambers to override the veto. And that's just to extend the Obamacare subsidies. So it seems very much like the ACA subsidies are dead. But they were dead during the shutdown anyway. As best I can tell, there were three options. You fold, and the ACA subsidies are dead. You maintain the shutdown, and the ACA subsidies are dead, but the polling and the attention are on this, and it's hurting the Republicans. Remember, Donald Trump himself publicly conceded that the shutdown was hurting him and the Republicans. Remember, we did all sorts of videos over it. And you're still drawing attention to the ACA subsidies. So that to me inflicted the maximum amount of pain on the Republicans, right? Or Republicans, decide to support the ACA subsidies. Well, that didn't happen. So the only two options really were for Democrats to either fold or to maintain the shutdown. But either way, the ACA subsidies are dead. And they went with the fold option. But the ACA subsidies are still dead. What did it get you? Now, they'll say, well, we also got some commitments that in this legislation, there's going to be basically language which prevents Trump from laying off a bunch of federal workers. He won't be able to do that anymore. Well, again, that's assuming that it's not enough to pass the Senate. Let's say that's actually language in the bill that they vote for. Well, then it has to pass the House, right? The House might say, no, we're not going to tie Donald Trump. He's our cult leader. We're not going to tie his hands like that. We're not going to say that he can't fire whoever the hell he wants whenever he wants. Then they say, well, the SNAP benefits. Well, the courts are ordering. I mean, there's an ongoing court fight right now about Trump paying SNAP benefits. Why didn't you let that play out? To say nothing of the fact that, well, we're ordering Donald Trump to pay SNAP benefits. What if he just says no? What if it makes it through the Senate and the House, and then it gets to Trump, and he's like, no, you're not going to tell me what to do with SNAP benefits or reductions in force. I'm going to lay off whoever the hell I want to lay off during a shutdown. And if I choose not to pay SNAP benefits, no, I'm not signing this. Then what? What have you accomplished? He could veto it. And you'll never get a supermajority to override his veto. So what did you get concretely? Doesn't seem like much. Politico's talking about this. Schumer no longer effective. Dems outrage over shutdown deal. Congressional Democrats are livid after a handful of their Senate colleagues voted Sunday to advance the House-passed stopgap and end the government shutdown. Chris Murphy called it a mistake. Bernie Sanders called it a very bad night. Blah, blah, blah. After 40 days of stalemate, 8 members of the Senate Democratic Caucus voted to advance the bill Sunday night, although notably none of the 8 are up for re-election in 2026. It's Schumer, who voted no Sunday, who is now facing questions. And yes, Schumer did vote no. Schumer voted against this. But the question is, as leader, did he try to stop it? See, I'm trying to bite my tongue here because I'm interested in what the reporting has to say. If the reporting comes out that Schumer was begging, pleading, threatening, doing everything in his power behind the scenes to prevent this from happening, then he should probably still resign because it means he's not effective, but my contempt for him will be reduced because at least I can say he did everything in his power. You're still probably too weak to be leader because you should have gotten this done, but I won't have contempt for you. I'll be able to say you did your best. There is no evidence of that, and there is some evidence and some reporting to the contrary that not only was he informed about what these defectors did, at least that's what the defectors are saying on live TV, like, yeah, we kept Senator Schumer informed. There's some reporting to indicate that it was done with his blessing, and he's allowing these, retiring centrists like Angus King and Dick Durbin and Shaheen, or Angus King isn't retiring, at least we don't know that, Dick Durbin and Shaheen to take the heat for it. In which case he's not only ineffective, he's also feckless, and that's a bad combination. Quote, don't endorse or say you voted for an NYC despite there being a Dem candidate. Mark Pocan wrote on X referring to Schumer declining to endorse Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani in the New York City mayoral race. We'll get Dem senators to negotiate a terrible deal that does nothing real about health care, screw over a national political party. Profile of courage? Next. Let's see. The House could take up the spending compromise later this week. House Democratic leadership has signaled they'll oppose the legislation, though Purple District lawmakers could face pressure to vote for it. House Democrats are expected to hold a virtual caucus meeting Monday afternoon to discuss their way forward. Tonight is another example of why we need new leadership. Moulton said in a post on X, if Schumer were an effective leader, he would have united his caucus to vote no tonight and hold the line on health care. And he's running for Senate against the current Democratic incumbent, Ed Markey. So it just goes on like this. Democrats are not happy. I want to play you a couple of clips before we wrap up here, because we could just play clips and clips and clips. But I'm going to just play you two for the sake of your blood pressure and mine. Here's Senator Shaheen.
If the president doesn't agree and Republicans block the extension of AC subsidies, would you guys be willing to vote again against government funding in January when this funding runs out?
That's certainly an option that I think everybody will consider. Thank you.
So if this doesn't work and the stopgap measure, fails, it's up. It'll expire in January. Will you vote against it? Maybe. So not even she should have been like, yeah. I'm only doing this because I think it gives us a chance, a greater than 0% chance to try to do something about healthcare. And if they spit in our faces, hell yes, we will do this again. And this time we won't give. You could at least try to say something like that. But the best you can offer is, it's an option we'll think about. Not very encouraging. But even more discouraging is this comment from Senator Angus King.
Well, Joe, you have to go back to what the strategy was at the beginning of the shutdown. There were two goals, both of which I support. One was standing up to Donald Trump. The other was getting some resolution on the ACA premium tax credit issue. The problem was the shutdown wasn't accomplishing either goals, and there was zero likelihood that it was going to. In terms of standing up to Donald Trump, the shutdown actually gave him more power, Exhibit A being what he's done with SNAP and SNAP benefits across the country. Oh, by the way, Joe, you're going to love this. Guess who's getting paid during the shutdown? Not the park rangers or air traffic controllers, the ICE agents. Under special law, under that big, awful bill that they passed last summer, the ICE agents are being paid. Nobody else is. So standing up to Donald Trump didn't work.
So standing up to Donald Trump didn't work. That is the worst thing you could possibly say, because he heard that. And now he's going to be even more encouraged to not negotiate with you in the future. Why would he? You folded. You folded in a more delayed fashion than back in March and April, but you still folded nonetheless. You are continuing to teach the lesson. All he has to do is outlast you, and you will eventually cave. Here's what I will say in summation. Tuesday's elections saw Democrats win across the board in places they should not have won, and in places they probably should have won, but by exceptional margins. When you have Donald Trump himself, when you have Donald fucking Trump himself admitting that he's concerned and that they're getting their asses kicked, Trump doesn't admit those things publicly. So imagine how spooked he had to be to do this. There was no polling data which indicated that people were upset with the Democrats or as upset with the Democrats about the shutdown. The poll after poll after poll after poll after poll, which even Trump conceded, is that Americans were blaming Trump and the Republicans for the shutdown, not the Democrats. And this healthcare issue, again, the polls showed that people were with the Democrats and not the Republicans. So all the momentum, all the polling, all the public support was on the Democrats' side. As I pointed out, Tim Kaine is in Virginia. He's a senator from Virginia. He voted to end the government shutdown. And I'll just use Virginia as an example as I put it on Twitter. So there's a Republican governor in Virginia, and the Republicans just lost the gubernatorial election. So that Republican will be replaced by a Democrat, Abigail Spanberger. She won by double-digit margins, which was exceptional and far beyond what anybody expected. One of the reasons that Trump and the Republicans are scared. They flipped 13 Virginia House seats. So they expanded their legislative majority in Virginia, which was not expected. And on top of it, they got the Attorney General candidate, Jay Jones, who was dogged by a text scandal in which 2 years ago he talked about how Republicans and their children should probably die to make them feel the pain that they inflict on. I mean, just a really callous viral text sent 2 years ago privately. They leaked. He apologized. But my point is, people are so pissed off with Trump and Republicans that they voted for that guy by high single-digit points. That's how pissed off they were. And so despite all of that, you cave. you've defeated the point of the election, in my opinion, and you've undermined and humiliated your own base. You've disgraced your base who were wanting fighters. And so that's why I say we can't do this again. I'm not going to do any more videos, I think, on the shutdown. I just want to get this all out. We can't do this again. We can't do this again. We got to stop doing this. You all know me. I am an openly partisan Democrat in that I vote Democrat. I'm a registered Democrat. I don't apologize for being a Democrat. I support the Democrats. I make no bones about it. I'm not a both sides kind of guy. I'm not a both sides suck kind of guy or whatever. I'm not a centrist. I'm not independent. I tell you where my biases are. But there's a reason that so many people hate this fucking party, and not just conservatives for obvious reasons, not just leftists and socialists and communists, right? There are times I hate this party. A lot of times I hate this party. And it's because of fecklessness. And that's where it comes down on all of us. I don't know where you are. You're probably all across the United States. You all, we all need to vote for people with balls and spine. I'm using metaphor here, right? Male or female, it doesn't matter. We need decisive, powerful leaders, be it like AOC or be it like Chris Murphy. We need decisive leaders who are willing to fight. And so it's up to us. It's up to us to have the long memory and say, okay, those of you who are not retiring, who are hoping that in 2 to 4 years we will have forgotten this, we're not going to forget. And whoever primaries you, if they show that they have more backbone than you, we're going to vote for them. We're going to hold this against you. Now, obviously, all of these people are still preferable to Republicans, and obviously the bulk of the blame is still on the Republicans, right? It was the 53 Republicans who are primarily responsible for the situation, but they couldn't have gotten this done without the 8 Democratic defectors. And so we can't do this anymore. It doesn't matter if you're a centrist or a moderate or a progressive or a leftist or whatever. We need candidates who, regardless of their policy preferences, will fight. We need moderates who will fight. We need progressives who will fight. But the through line needs to be fight, fight, fight. That's my spiel on this. Democrats snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Who knows what will happen in the future? But there we are. The government shutdown looks like it's going to end because of 8 Democratic defectors. And I could talk about this for another 30 minutes, but we're already 20 minutes in. It's a pretty long video. Not scripted, per usual. I'm just kind of getting out my feelings about this. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. But again, we can't fucking do this anymore. We just can't.